Welcome to the Bourbon Friday Show. We're talking business and bourbon. I'm your host, Nick Niehaus, and today I'm talking to Mike Sato, who is the Executive Director of Freecog. So, Mike, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me on the show, Nick.
Yeah, of course. So, we decided to talk about Freecog a little bit. So, Freecog, if I understand, is a replacement for ankle bracelets. Is that correct?
It is. We started a nonprofit
because
we realized with a mobile app, we could do everything that GPS ankle monitors are doing.
Yeah.
And then we realized we could actually do a lot more.
Cool. So let me ask this first of all, like, why did this not already exist, right? Because like GPS and phones has been there for quite a while now, right?
Yeah, they're ubiquitous. It's a great question. What can I say? I think Silicon Valley isn't really focused on poor people.
Sure,
and
that's
I think
fair.
They're not really focused on the criminal justice system. But we have an opportunity for technology to have a real place in criminal justice reform, specifically in pretrial release and bail reform.
That's great. So let's talk about the problem here. I mean, why is this a problem that really needs to be addressed?
The problem is there are a lot of poor people that are in jail, not because they're dangerous or a flight risk, but because they're poor.
Yeah.
And right now when we set a cash bond, we use money to secure their return to court.
Right.
But money isn't the best measure of that. What we really need are safety and monitoring. And technology can give us a much better answer. Mobile tech with GPS monitoring, with facial recognition, and with voice-to-text authentication can give courts and law enforcement officers all the tools they need to make sure people are where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be. And we don't need to charge them money to do that.
That's great. Yeah, because I mean, the whole idea of bond is just to make sure people don't flee, right?
That's right.
They stay around, right? And then so get into that a little bit more, because I think a lot of people don't realize that, you know, when you're released on bond, and if you don't pay that money, or you can't come up with the money, like something else happens, right?
That's right. So there's two conditions that courts look to when they set your bond. Are you a danger to the community, and are you a flight risk?
Right.
And if you don't come back to your court date, then the court issues a warrant, and the sheriff's department or any law enforcement officer can execute that warrant.
Okay.
And then you end up waiting in jail. So right now what we have are really crowded jails with lots of people who are waiting for their day in court. They're waiting pre-trial. They're not serving any kind of sentence, and they're just there because they can't afford to pay their cash bond.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how did we get to that point, right? Because it seems like you would think in America, like, this would not be a problem. We're putting people in jail because they don't have money, right?
Yeah.
But is this something that's always been the case, or has it gotten worse in previous years, or how did we get to that point?
So this is really an American problem.
Okay.
If you look at other developed nations globally, really America is the country that has their pretrial release dominated by a cash bond system and a commercial bond system.
Wow.
And a lot of its roots are historical. If you look back into kind of the Wild West, I'm a big fan of American history.
Sure.
Posting $300 was a fortune. And the idea that you would post $300 and run off to Mexico or out into the wilderness was just unthinkable.
Right.
And so we have this antiquated system that hasn't changed very much over the last 100 years.
Wow. That's terrible.
Yeah, I think it's a bad thing for lots of poor people, and it's a bad thing for Missouri. It's a bad thing for Missouri counties. We spend a lot of money on incarceration.
Well, right, yeah.
And I think we can save Missouri counties a lot of money by using an app instead of a cash bail model.
Okay, so let's talk more about the app, right? So how does it work? Kind of give me some specifics here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you're released without having to pay any money to the court, in Missouri we call that a recognizance bond.
Okay.
And so many of my friends and my clients have shortened that to a recog. So we called our app Freecog because we wanted to be a free recognizance bond. So the way the app works in its most basic form, a judge would set up their profile and say I was the judge and I was going to release you on bond.
Sure.
And I'd say, okay, well, Nick, here's your phone number. I'm going to take a picture of you. I'm going to upload it to your profile. And I'm going to set the conditions of your bond and say every day at noon, you have to check in.
Okay.
So what the app does is it alerts you at noon, and you take a little selfie video of yourself with a randomized 5-digit code. So we use our voice-to-text authentication to make sure it's the right code. It's the code of the day. And we use our facial recognition engine to make sure that it's you. And then we take a GPS tag. And that, as long as you do that every day, the judge is satisfied. You're not running off. We have an eye on you. We know where you're at. Now, we can add a lot of features to that, like GPS pinging. We can randomize that. We can ping your phone as often as every minute. That's pretty secure.
Right.
And with our geofencing features, we can draw a 200-meter circle around your house. And just like house arrest, if you cross that line, well, then an alert gets generated. And it gets sent to the judge, the prosecutor, law enforcement, maybe even your attorney. And it says, hey, Nick has violated the conditions of his bail.
Gotcha.
And then we know right away that you're not doing the things you're supposed to do.
Cool, yeah. Sounds pretty straightforward.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
Some people are going to ask, well, what if you leave your phone at home and you go run off? Well, if we randomize when you're going to have to check in, then you got to keep your phone on you all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Which
never
really
know what's
cool.
coming.
Yeah, because you never know, right?
Sure.
You can't just take off with it. What we really like about it is that we can do inverse geofencing. So we can enforce restraining orders.
Oh,
you can go anywhere you want in the city of St. Louis except this particular house or this particular school.
Wow.
And that's a really powerful application of this technology.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It almost feels like, and I can't think of all the exact applications, but there's probably a lot of other places and ways to use this, I would think, right?
Our goal is to give Missouri judges all the tools that they would need in a technology setting that they would have in a cash bail setting or a law enforcement setting. So all the other conditions of bond that they might order normally, we want to replicate those on the app.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, so tell me a little bit about the background. How did the business come to be in the first place?
So we started at the St. Louis round of the Global Legal Tech Hackathon.
Oh, okay.
I had never been to a hackathon before.
Yeah.
I don't have a background in programming or engineering. And I went there not really understanding what it was or what was going to happen. And somebody handed me a microphone and said, just tell us all the things that you wish you had as a public defender, as a lawyer practicing criminal law. And so I just started rattling off all the ideas that I had. And thank goodness there were some very, very talented engineering minds in the room who heard this app idea and said, hey, I think that's pretty viable. I think we could build that. So that was where I met the engineers. We formed a team, and we worked very hard over that weekend to put a prototype together. Excuse me.
Oh, you're good.
And we won the competition.
Wow.
And so we were really excited. And over the course of trying to compete to go to New York, we did not win, and we did not get to go to New York. But we decided that we believed in this idea, and we wanted to form a company around it. And I'm proud to say we agreed to form a nonprofit around it.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. So how did you decide to go the nonprofit route?
Right. Well, morally, I believe it's wrong for private businessmen to make money off of poor people who can't afford to pay their bonds.
That's fair.
I don't think that's a good thing.
Sure.
And I think that leads to lots of other problems in terms of pretrial incarceration. What's special about Freecog is that it is a nonprofit. Our whole model is designed to save counties money and to provide poor people a fair alternative to expensive GPS ankle monitors. The leaders in Missouri right now are charging around $10 a day to wear those ankle monitors.
Okay.
$300 a month is an extra bill that a lot of people can't afford.
Right, yeah. That's a ton of money.
That's a lot of money, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so so you can be in prison or you can pay to wear this thing around, basically, or your choices at that point?
So there's a little bit of a difference between going to prison and serving a sentence and being held in a county jail.
Well, of course,
the case is pending.
I'm using the wrong terms, I apologize.
No problem. But I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Sure.
So what we have are very sophisticated pieces of technology that are only available to the people who can afford it. And I want electronic monitoring to be available to as many people as possible. I want to level that playing field. And my hope is that over time, when more and more judges adapt to technology and sort of see how strong it is, they'll move away from setting cash bonds and instead move towards using other forms of electronic monitoring. And we want to be the low-cost, affordable option for electronic monitoring.
Cool. So have you guys figured out kind of how much of a cost savings we're talking about here? Or
we have
are those internal numbers,
No, that's fine. We have run those numbers and with some very realistic goals, some very meetable goals, we could save Missouri counties millions of dollars a year.
Wow, really? That's amazing. Cool. So how's that? What's the progress in terms of have you started talking to judges about it yet? Or what's the feedback you're getting?
I've gotten wonderful feedback from the judges that I've spoken to about it. We have one retired judge is on our board. He's a board member. And all the judges that I've spoken to about it think it's a really exciting idea. And they want to see how the technology works in the field. And fortunately, in St. Charles County, we even have one judge who's willing to sponsor a pilot program.
Awesome.
So when we're ready for our beta testing and our soft launch, really, that's where we're going to start.
Exciting, yeah.
But we want this to work everywhere.
I'm
we
sure,
want this in St. Louis and Kansas City and Springfield and in the Boot Heel and in northern Missouri, all over the state. That's the goal.
Cool. And is this something I'm assuming other states could utilize as well, or?
I believe so. Yeah. That's what's really exciting about the applications of the technology. this could be applied nationally. There's nothing we're doing that's exclusive to Missouri. Pretrial release and jail crowding is a problem all over the United States.
Yeah, of course, big issue here, right?
Absolutely.
Well, so I guess the important question is, it sounds like you need to talk to judges. Is that kind of what you're looking for, is conversations with more judges, or are there other people you're looking to get in touch with?
We want all the partners that we can get in the community. We want judges on board. We want county sheriffs on board. We want prosecuting attorneys on board. We want defense attorneys on board. We want all the kinds of community leaders on board, because when you look at it, there's so much money, I think, being wasted on incarceration costs. And that money could better serve so many people and so many counties in Missouri. I started my practice in a very rural part of the state in the Boot Heel. And I know how hard it is on small counties and rural counties to be able to afford those incarceration costs. And beyond that, getting arrested and being held in pretrial detention ruins people's lives. They lose jobs, they lose apartments or homes, they have problems with their relationships with their family and their loved ones. There could be all kinds of health problems and health concerns. And it calls into question a lot of the practices that we have in the criminal courts. You know, we hear stories all the time about guys who said, I just wanted to plead guilty, not because I was really guilty, but because I wanted to get out of jail and I couldn't afford my bond. And so we want to bring as much integrity to the system as possible.
And to think you can destroy a life without anybody even being convicted in the first place, right? I mean,
there are some very
crazy.
There are some very serious examples of that.
Well, this is a great mission. That's awesome. So, the real important question here is, if somebody wants to get involved, if they want to learn more, I mean, how do they get in touch with you guys?
Contact us. Visit our website, www.freecog.com. We have a contact tab on the page. Contact us there. You can follow us on Twitter or Instagram @FreecogBond. And we'd love to meet with you. We'd love to talk with you. Send us an email, and we'll get in touch.
Very cool. Good stuff. Well, Mike, I appreciate it. We do have a couple minutes left, so we're going to shift gears here a little bit. And what we're going to do is invite Eric onto the show. Eric's the founder of Bourbon Friday. He selects a bourbon every week, and he's going to tell us a little bit about it now.
Sure. So it wasn't too easy to find something to relate back to you. I did find a little bit. Like bail bondsman, when you type in bourbon, mostly you get something like bail bondsman in Bourbon County. That kind of thing. However, I did find this story, and the story is too good not to tell. So this is George Remus bourbon, and it is named after George Remus, the king of bootlegging. So, like much less known than Al Capone, but about at that level. And the reason is, like you, George Remus was a defense attorney, and not a public defender, not nearly as altruistic as you are. But he's got his start. He got his actual start as a pharmacist, and then became an attorney. And he started out in his career defending murderers. And he was one of the people that popularized what was called transitory insanity at the time. Now we know that as temporary insanity as the plea. So around this time was Prohibition. So he started defending a lot of bootleggers. And as he was listening to all of his clients, he started wondering, well, let's look at this law. The Volstead Act is the law. And he memorized it. And then he's like, well, I can find loopholes in this. So what he did was he went out and he started the loophole, as we've talked about on the show previously, is medicinal alcohol. So he went out and started buying up distilleries. So rather than selling medicinal alcohol, well, there's only so much money in that. You can only, I believe, put out a pint a month or something like that was the dosage for people. Rather than that, he would go out and steal his own supply and then bootleg it. And then bootleg it. Through this time, he and his partner, and this is the 20s, mind you, amassed $40 million.
Oh my gosh.
Had 3,000 employees. Yeah. And so eventually he got caught. He got a couple of years in prison for that. Things didn't go so well for George after that, but This is just one of these crazy stories from bourbon history and whiskey history, and this is this guy. Additionally, this is, if you've heard of MGP. MGP makes a lot of sourced bourbons, a lot of things that are bottled, that if you ever see Lawrenceburg, Indiana on that bottle, that is coming from MGP. Well, this is actually their product, and they're making this. So it's a little bit of, okay, yes, defense attorney, but also, MGP does distill spirits, but they never release their own products until then. So they're doing something a little bit different than what they originally started out to do.
Very cool.
Sounds great. It's
Yeah.
a great story.
Yeah.
Well done, but well researched this time. I love it. Well, we got a minute or two left, Eric. Do we got some events coming up?
There are a lot of events coming up next week. Starting out on March 10th, there is the Giveable Happy Hour at the Dubliner in Maplewood. This is that happy hour that's basically trying to be a networking event for nonprofits. So if you are trying to meet other people,
we'll
on that
be
day,
there.
good. And Giveable, they are a Kobo member, so we know them well. Proceeds for that will go to TrailNet. On March 11th, we have F Cubed, Focus, Faith, and Follow Through at T-Rex. This is a sort of lunchtime workshop. It's going to be Devin Moody Graham, who is the CEO mom, and Jana Westbrook from Provider Pool are going to be putting that on. Then also on Wednesday, we have the Creative Process at Fashion Fund. This is an amazing event. They put it on there, I believe, about every quarter. We've got designer Michael Drummond, the Collective Thread, which is a social enterprise where they are a small batch manufacturer of textiles, but they also teach immigrant and refugee women how to do industrial sewing, so that they can elevate their life. Then finally, foods, healthy treats and snacks. I believe they've got a healthy cookie. We can always use more of those.
Absolutely.
And then David Alexander of Social Origin. He's a market strategist and a podcast producer that focuses on ROI. So that should be really interesting. Then also on Wednesday night, we have Geosaurus Unleashed at T-Rex. Don't have a whole lot of details, but your app is clearly geospatial. So definitely go and check out Geosaurus. And then March 12th, of course, we have Venture Cafe. A lot of highlights this week. How technology is changing conservation by the Ozark Land Trust. Who is breaking the Del Mar divide while creating opportunity to thrive by Heidelberg Consultants, and STL Made for Momentum. What's next for the regional narrative? Of course, STL Made launched at Venture Cafe basically about a year ago, 314 Day. That's when they launched last year. So all that. And then also on Thursday, we have Conversations Inspiring Tomorrow's Scientists at the Danforth Plant Science Center. This is a program that's about the future of STEM in education, and they're going to have cutting-edge AR and VR equipment there so that you can actually try out. And then Friday, we are back here for another great Bourbon Friday. We're going to be talking to Dr. Perry Drake, the conference founder of MDMC and assistant professor of digital and social marketing at UMSL. I know you've interviewed him, and we've met him, and he's a great guy. And that should be not just interesting for MDMC, but interesting just talking about that subject with him. And then, of course, as I just mentioned, 314 Day coming up. One of the highlights for that, there is the St. Louis Exchange hosted at CAM. This is a platform to exchange art, goods, ideas, and commerce while celebrating people and business owners and culture in St. Louis. So definitely go check that out if you're looking for something interesting to do besides just having a couple beers on 314. And then if you have a St. Louis startup event, please just send us an email at events@bourbonfriday.show.
Cool. Good stuff. Well, I'm glad to hear the startup events are picking back up, right? It's
yes.
getting busy again. So
yes.
Good stuff as always, Eric. Appreciate it. Mike, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a great conversation, and I really love the mission of what you're doing. Yes. So excited to see the growth. And for those of you tuning in, just want to thank a couple organizations and people for always supporting us. Of course, thank you to Kovo for hosting both the event and show every week. Thank you to EQ for sharing your audience with us. And thank you to Ian Brown behind the camera. Always makes us look good by producing the show. This has been Bourbon Friday, and we will see you again next Friday. Talk to you then.
Hey, thanks for watching. We truly hope you enjoyed it. Please like and share this episode, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. To stay up to date, follow us on social. We are at Bourbon Fridays on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok. See you next time.